think most people, when they encounter bundle grading, come at it through what we call specifications grading or spec grading. That is, and also I think contract grading often includes bundling. And so you have a series of assignment types, you set very specific guidelines for what a successful completion of that assignment type would look like. And then students have the opportunity to pick different assignments within each groups. And then they have to meet that specification in order to sort of check that box and move on. I've adapted it into a system that does not rely on specs grading. So aside from discussion post, which I haven't done as much on Canvas post ChatGPT release. So that was probably the only version of specs grading where as long as they hit roughly the intended word amount, as long as they engaged thoughtfully with the topic, and as long as they interacted with at least two other posts, that was a sort of check, they've done it, great, full marks. I have moved away from discussion posts, but still incorporate bundled grading, though without that kind of specification approach. So in my classes, what that means is that I have a couple of different assignment types. Given it's a history class, or my classes are within history, there are a number of what we call like critical kind of reading assignments, so primary or secondary text analyses that ask them to think really thoughtfully about the material and engage with it critically. Those are kind of really traditional historical writing assignments. So there's always a sort of chunk of those that make up their grades. I always try and incorporate creative assignments because, again, when you think about sort of our taxonomies of learning, and I think Bloom is the one that most people are familiar with, the ability to create with information is one of the sort of best ways of solidifying knowledge construction. So I always include creative assignments. And then depending on the class, there might be other types of assignments built in. And so with the bundle approach, I'll have these different sort of classes or categories of assignments. There's always choice. So I'll assign, say, 6 reading responses, and students are responsible for completing a couple of those through the quarter. And then with the bundled approach, there is a little wiggle room in which students can decide what type of assignment they are most excited about and do a little bit more work in that assignment category. So usually what it means is they always have to complete a couple of each assignment types. And then there's a kind of floating component of their grade where they can select whether they want to do an additional reading response or 2, an additional creative assignment or 2. And so they can weight their grade a little bit more towards the assignment type that builds on the skills they have, that engages with questions or materials they're most excited about, while still ensuring that they participate in each type of assignment through the quarter. So they're not opting out of any type of work, but essentially they're given the flexibility to focus a little bit of their time and some of their grade on the type of assignment they're most excited to do. Yeah, I think that builds off of what we were just talking about, but I think trying to be really as transparent about what the method is, why you're doing it, why it's being brought into the classroom for their benefit, and then adding in some of those additional kind of frameworks to make things clear. So adding in the checklist that lays out exactly what all the assignments are, what's expected of them, how the bundles are constructed so they can keep on track of that, asking them early on to select a bundle, though there's always opportunity to change anytime in the quarter. I think creating a little bit of that scaffolding really helps, or supporting structure really helped lessen some of the anxiety about introducing a different grading approach. And I think asked them to kind of get on board earlier on. And I think that for me alleviated some issues where students might get to the end of the quarter and realize, okay, well, now I just have to do everything that's left and, take the bundle that works out to. But having them sort of engage with that choice early on added that little bit of kind of support that I think was helpful. Particularly, I think, given there's always anxiety around grading, and that is understandable. But also what it means is when they look at a Canvas page for my class, it looks like there's just an immense amount of assignments, that there's assignments every single week, when in reality, they might only need to complete maybe 60% of those. And so I do think there is, particularly given now that we work through Canvas, we work through these online spaces where they're encountering information before you are sitting down and talking through what it actually means. I think that also has helped a little bit stave off some of the anxiety about the workload while appreciating I do assign a lot of work and I fall at that end of the spectrum. I do think the supporting structures help with that.